Peak human.
Les humains à leur meilleur.
C'est tu apogeo.
ピーク人間
Pitówka niewiód.
Hey, we're back in business. We got Vinnie Tortorich here. Got a long story with Vinnie. We met a year and a half ago up in Woodland Hills and started to make food lies together. And then it kind of fell apart. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was for the better because now we have two movies. He made the movie Fat, a documentary, which I watched on Amazon Prime. Great story, great film about where we went wrong. The more films, the better out there, you know? So it's cool to talk to him, catch up with him, talk about his film, talk about my film. Update everyone on food lies, talk about nutrition, talk about all kinds of things. He's been in the game a long time, so it's great to talk about all this stuff. And I guess I should mention my stuff a little bit before we get going. Of course, I have nosetotale.org. Get all the good organ meats, mix in with the ground beef. We got the omega-3 chicken and pork. This stuff is interesting, guys. I haven't really talked about it too much, but this stuff has crazy amounts of omega-3. You taste it. Like you smell it, it smells like fish. It's like you're eating salmon. It's like if you don't want to eat seafood and you like pork, why not just get pasture-raised pork with high omega-3 like fish has? It's pretty amazing. So we got the omega-3 chicken, the omega-3 pork. We have buffalo, beef, and lamb. I've been eating a lot lately. I made bone broth with some of the lamb bones. I've been eating the primal ground beef with the organs mixed in. It's been great. People have been buying it. We're on the move. Maybe I can pay rent while I make this documentary. And speaking of the documentary, still on Indiegogo. Need your support there. It's not like Vinny, who was on Adam Carolla's show, and which is super popular. If anyone hasn't heard of it, that's why I mentioned it. I was so excited to get booked on it, and then I got unbooked. But anyway, he raised $250,000 on Indiegogo. I raised maybe 1/10 of that. And so now I'm trying to still scrape together some money. So if anyone could still please support, it's still open. You can go to foodlies.org or go to Patreon. Just patreon.com/peakhuman. I'm still there trying to just get by, trying to make this film, trying to get the word out. So thanks to everyone listening. Thanks for all the messages I get. Thanks for sending me your transformation stories of, photos before and after the Sapien. I'm starting to talk about the Sapien diet more, which is fun. And let's just get to this episode. It's a different one. I like it. It's more of a chance to talk and less crazy science talk and more fun and more just good old-fashioned nutrition talk, which is basically all I do. All my friends are tired of it. Anyway, here it is. Here's Vinnie Tortorich. Let's do it. All right. We got Vinnie Tortorich from the road. How's it going?
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a while since I've actually seen you. How are things going on your end?
Very well. Yeah, we're in full gear now, finishing up the film. I guess we should give the audience a little backstory. We met over a year ago up in Woodland Hills to talk about making a film together, possibly.
Yeah, when you and I met, I want to say like the third or fourth or fifth guy that came to me and said, let's do a movie. The thing that was different about you was you were motivated, excited, and ready to rock and roll. You were one of the guys who took it from a phone call to a let's get together and meet. And we actually met a couple of times. Talked about it.
It was good. And, I think there's the thing was we had our own ideas, right? We both had our own ideas of what this movie could be. You've probably been thinking about this for decades. I think that's what you mentioned. You're always thought about this. If you could pull off the movie, what would it be? How much work would it take? All that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of that. And it was a lot of, I was one of the early guys in the game. My book came out. I guess the book is like maybe 7 or 8 years old now. The podcast is 8 years old or more. And, people started coming to me right at the beginning of that and saying, you need to do a movie. And at the time, the only movies that were out there was, I like to call them, and I don't say this lightly, they're vegan propaganda films. And the reason I call them that is because that's exactly what they are. They're basically telling lies. I would be okay if they told the truth, but they're not. And the agenda is not what they would have you believe. There were movies like Forks Over Knives and, things like that, Cowspiracy, and some of these movies out there. A bunch of guys, Hollywood guys, both Brian and I, if the audience doesn't know, we both live out in Hollywood, people will come to you and say, hey, let's do the opposite movie. And what they mean to say is, let's lie in the opposite direction. How do you fight fire? With fire. And I would always say, no, I'm not going to do that because I haven't lied to my audience. And my audience was growing more and more. Back then, and this is going way back, I had like 100,000 people downloading my podcast a month back then and that kind of deal. And that was pretty big for back then. It's nowhere near the audience it is now. But, I started hearing it a lot back then. Let's do a movie. Let's lie in the opposite direction. Let's say the opposite of what the Esselsteins are saying and the opposite of what Neil Barnard is saying. And I was like, no, that's a lie too. I want the truth to come out. And you were a guy who came to me and said, hey, let's do this and let's tell the truth. God only knows why it didn't happen between us. I think, it was money and getting the right money and some of the money you were looking at getting at the time. And it wasn't the right thing for the right time. But I think things turned out better because, I got to do my own movie the way I wanted to do it. And you're going to get to do your own movie the way you want to do it. And I think, I don't know what you've done and you've seen what I've done because mine is out. I think it's going to all complement each other. And I know there's another 1 or 2 movies out there also. And I'm excited about those too. I think Chris Bell has one.
Chris Bell and Diana Rogers, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know Diana Rogers at all, but I know she has one and a couple of people that were in my movie or in her movie and this sort of thing. So, I think it's all good because, the Magic Pill came out and they did what they did and I thought it was a good job. I think everybody that puts one of these movies out, we're going to actually cause a paradigm shift that was really needed. So I think it's all good that we're doing different movies and we're going to just keep putting them out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Brian?
Yeah. That's what I definitely landed on. In the beginning, I was like, oh man, what if we're going to make the same film or this is not good? And then I realized it's completely a good thing. The more the merrier. Everyone's film is super different. I met with Chris Bell. We started hanging out a little bit, really getting into the same kind of thing. And we're like, hey man, our movies are so different. Like there's no reason we need to even worry about it. It'd be absurd to think we'd make the same film. And then also, so Fat. Let's talk about your film. Fat, I saw the first day it came out. Awesome. Yeah. It was so great to see that it turned out so well. And it was also so great for me to know that it wasn't the same. I was glad to see that, you covered this story of how we went wrong so well, like the whole fat and cholesterol. If people haven't heard of his movie, it's called Fat, a documentary. Highly recommend it. It's on iTunes and Vimeo right now, right?
Yeah, well, it's actually on way more than that. It's on iTunes, Vimeo, it's on Amazon Prime. You can get Blu-rays, you can get all of that. And it's actually VOD on, I think, 100 different cable providers. So you could get it around the world. And it's going to also be on airplanes and everywhere else. It's just going to be everywhere.
Oh, wow.
So we got a worldwide distribution deal on it. But online, at first I was just directing people because I didn't want to go, hey, you can go find it here and there. You got to kind of concentrate people to somewhere. So we were going, hey, you can get it on Vimeo, iTunes, or Amazon and Amazon Prime because those are some of the big places. And and people have said to me, why isn't it on, and it's on Vudu, that's another one, and some of those things. And people have asked me, they said, well, why isn't it on Netflix? And I said, because I didn't want it to be on Netflix. Eventually, we'll sell it to Netflix, maybe a year down the road, something like that. Look, I'm a big Netflix consumer, and I'm a big Hulu consumer. I have both of those in my house, and I use them a lot. But I feel like that's where films go to die. That's just me, and I could be way wrong. But when you put it on Netflix, only the people who have Netflix can see it, right? It won't be anywhere else. It'll just be there. And if Netflix gets it, Hulu will not get it. And if Hulu gets it, Netflix won't take it. So, and by the way, and you might do Netflix. You might go, wait a minute, Netflix is willing to give me just a shit ton of money. So you might just go, I'm going to take the Netflix deal. I'm in the hole here. I got to make money. My thing was people crowdfunded this thing. My promise on crowdfunding was I will get this thing out to the biggest audience I can get it out to. That means that you make less money or you may not ever make money because there's no advertising dollars that went into the advertising of the movie. So it's only based on me pushing it every day. So that's a big chance you take when you do that, right?
Yeah.
That's where I am. And that's what I did. I said, okay, how can I get this thing in front of the most eyes? That's the way we chose to do it. And so far, it's been very promising. I think we were the #1 top-selling movie in the history of iTunes documentaries. Now I think we're like #2 if you look, #2 or 3. We're behind, I think, Free Solo again. So we were going nip and tuck with Free Solo, and we beat them out for a day or two, and now we're right behind them. And, that kind of thing. And Amazon is selling off the hooks. And so, people are finding it and handing it to their friends and saying, hey, go watch this thing. So it's been good so far for the first week. It's been out for about a week.
Yeah.
And it's been good so far.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I wanted to know about all this stuff because I'm behind you and you're kind of paving the way here. So it's great. I always heard that Netflix kind of just tries to shortchange people. Like they're like, hey, we're Netflix. We're like the cool hot girl at school. Everyone wants us and we're going to, give you like 10 grand for it, even though it cost you, 300.
Well, Netflix offered me and us way more than 10 grand. I don't know where people get that number from.
About maybe.
But the problem is they give you the fee one time. It wouldn't have covered what I have in a movie. Mm-hmm. I put a lot of my own money. That's a lie. It would have covered that. But I have even more money than that in the movie. And then it wouldn't have behooved me to go out and tell anyone about the movie or tell anyone to even watch it. Because that would have been it. Netflix would have said, hey, we own it, and that's it. And anyone that wants to see it has to own Netflix. And guess what? Netflix is really big, but most of the world does not consume Netflix. Sorry, they just don't. So that's something to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that makes sense. And also, they never give you any numbers, right? It's a lockbox. You'll never know.
Yeah, I don't know. We didn't go down that road, so I don't know what they do. Maybe you've heard stuff that I don't know, but I was told people were begging for it to be on Netflix, and now some people are mad at me. They're like, why is it on Netflix? It's like, just go buy it. You can rent it $3 on iTunes. You don't have $3. I don't know what to tell you. You can get it from Amazon for $3-4. Vimeo, same thing. I think it's $4. And if you don't want to spend $4 on this movie, you don't want to see it, right? Sorry. And that's kind of the deal. And you don't get rich on people renting movies for $4. Everyone, my friend Adam Carolla told me, he goes, you're making a documentary, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, don't expect to get rich. I'm not. He goes, expect to lose money. Yeah, and that's basically the world of documentaries.
I knew that going in. That's kind of like the whole thing. It's like you're doing it for a different reason. Yeah. It's not for making money. It's you have a vision or like you want to.
But then the other side of it, I don't know if you've ever seen these movies. I love the guy. There's a guy named Donald O'Neill, and he did 2 movies.
Yeah.
One was called Serial Killers, and then he did Serial Killers 2. Yeah, and I like what Donald did. He basically, in some cases, took an iPhone whenever he could grab an interview with people and just got these interviews. People like Stephen Finney and Jeff Volek and some of these people. I love what Donald did, but the movie was never seen by a lot of people. I got a lot of respect for that guy. I used to have him on my podcast all the time, and I kept saying the whole time, I don't want to become Donald O'Neill, where he puts out this documentary, and when I mention it to people, they'll go, yeah, I never saw it. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my deal. I wanted more people to see it. And I tell people every chance I get, they go, what else is out there? I'll say Serial Killers and Serial Killers 2, and you might want to go check out, Magic Pill. There are other movies out there. And I can't wait until, Food Lies comes out. So I can go, yeah, you saw my movie? Now go watch Food Lies. And whoever else, I don't know what the other movie is going to be called, but yeah.
I'm right there with you. I had to see them on dietdoctor.com, and you could get a subscription, and they have a bunch of them. There's a few others, that Sugar Film. There's something called like Fat Chance or something. There's a bunch out there. The problem is they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the reach. It was good content, it wasn't always like super like movie quality content, but it was a great message. They just never found their place.
Yeah, I think the reason they didn't find their place, just like us and everyone else, I think, no one has the advertising dollars. My ace in the hole in this whole thing was Peter Pardini, because he was coming off of a big documentary that won awards and, top documentary. It was one about the band Chicago, called Chicago Now More Than Ever. And not only that, Peter, and I'll say this to whoever, the kid is a genius. He's the world doesn't know what Peter Pardini's capable of yet. Obviously, it's not my movie and it's not Chicago. You know, he's got a lot to do in his life, and he will. But that helps it too. You know, when you have a guy like that when you get in the edit bay with him, he's just a bundle of energy, and he knows, you know, we had kind of the shorthand. He knows exactly what to do and where to put it. That has a lot to do with it, you know, just having that guy, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'm kind of doing it on my own more, and I have, finally, my friends have come through. I have a great guy in Hawaii who's just a genius filmmaker and really into this type of eating as well. And another guy who's a writer who's helping me. And then I partnered with a production company too in LA. So we kind of piece the puzzle together one by one. But yeah, tell me more about it. Like you filmed it, a lot of it at the same conference I was at last year. So we ended up getting some of the same
last
people.
Year?
Yeah, we were in different worlds. You were in there filming, and then I'd grab, you know, Ivor Cummins would come in and be like, oh man, I just got finished filming with Vinny. You know, we had this whole crazy room set up. They tore the room apart and made it into a sound studio.
That must be what everyone was talking about, because I went in with a whole Hollywood crew. You know, I got an actual Hollywood crew to come in. You just answered a question I've had for a year, because they would come in and the first thing they would do is they would go, whoa, oh, wow. Because we went in and tore, like these guys went in and emptied the room. Like, you know how hotels have the desk is kind of bolted to the walls? They came in, it was like zoop, 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 you know, with these electric drills, and just emptied the room. They put the village, the sound village was basically, not the sound village, the video village was on the balcony. The sound village was in the bathroom. And they turned the entire room into a soundproof soundstage. And whenever people walked in, you walked in the door and there was a curtain. Like you couldn't even you walked through a curtain. And I can't remember who was the first one to come in, maybe Dave Feldman or someone. And he went, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it was like, what's wrong? And he was like, this is like a real movie. We were like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then Gary Taubes walked in and he was like, oh, geez. And we're like, what's up? And he's like, you actually have a movie set here. And we're like, yeah, sit down. We're going to start interviewing. Same thing happened to a bunch of them. You know, I think my feeling is they were used to the Donald O'Neills who show up with a camera phone saying, hey, would you mind talking into this camera phone? That was my idea of what they were used to. When you have a camera on a track and you have sound people and cameramen and they come in and whisk in and you have the sound and all this kind of stuff. Nobody was ready for that. And I think some of them, they weren't planning on bringing their A game, but when they saw what was going on, they brought their A game. Who did you interview down there, by the way?
Well, we grabbed Taubes earlier. He was in LA. He was in Santa Monica, and we grabbed him earlier, but we got Feldman. Yeah, ours was a little more run and gun. It was definitely not an iPhone. But I think that's why they were so surprised, because I had a couple guys with me and, you know, we had 2 cameras, we had some lights. It just wasn't anything like that. We were doing like the kind of standard documentary style interviews, but we've done a lot of different things, actually. Budget is huge. So you raised you had a good budget, right? You guys had a great crowdfunding campaign, had a great budget. I've been like piecemealing it together over the months, and money's like trickling in, and then, you know, we just went up into Canada and had some great shots up there.
Oh,
so
cool.
Some film shoots with amazing farmers. And yeah, like we bought some better cameras, some better equipment. Yeah, I mean, documentaries are a crazy thing to make. It sounds like yours was really efficient, actually. You got it all done at once in a couple shoots, like right there. And then I believe you did at your house a lot,
we
too.
did. By the way, we had everything, like when we went down to San Diego, everyone was already in the schedule. We had everyone scheduled. You know, like we said, Gary, you're coming in at 9. Feldman, you're coming in at 10:30. Nina came to my house. Georgia Eads, you're coming in at this time. Everyone was on a schedule. You know, you mentioned Diet Doctor, Ivor, Andreas Ianfeld.
Oh, Andreas.
You know, they all have their time to come. So we came in like a military. That's how my life works, though. Everything is kind of like a military operation. People have even said to me, were you in the Marines or something? And it's like, everything is military operation around me. Even though my online persona is, hey, I'm loose, I'm nice and the whole thing. I do nothing is by accident with me. And one of the things that happened down there, and I ended up becoming friends with the guy, we weren't part of the convention. We weren't invited to the convention. And, whenever we needed to get the next guy, I would leave the room and go down the elevator and go try to meet the next guy. I'd get out of the elevator and people would say, oh, Vinny, when are you talking? When is your speech? And I'm like, I'm not part of the convention. I'm just here doing something else. Hey, Ivor, let's go upstairs. Hey, photos and pictures. And the funny thing is that I was doing that. And I think our mutual friend, Shawn Baker's in your movie, right? Well, Shawn and I would be downstairs sometimes and crowds would form, because we've been in this community for a while and we have a fan base and people wanted to get the selfies and the whole thing. And there were more people taking photos with me and Shawn in the hallway. I think the people at the event got upset about that. They were like, well, wait a minute. These guys came and robbed our event.
Yeah, Shawn wasn't part of the event either. He just showed up too. I talked to him as well. Yeah,
they were mad at both of us. And out of that, I ended up becoming friends with the guy. He's a really cool, Doug. He's a really cool guy. But,
Doug's great.
They were, I think it was his wife more than him, Pam, was a little upset. She's like, wait a minute, these guys weren't even invited, and they're standing in the hallway robbing our show. And we did not mean to do that at all. Mm-hmm. And when I learned that, I just kind of stayed in the room and stayed out of sight after that as much as I could. Everyone was like, they kept saying, hey, Vinny's here. It's like, when's he speaking? And then someone came up and said, would you speak? I was like, no, I don't think you understand. I'm not part of this convention. I wasn't invited. So that happened. And then out of that came a relationship with Doug Reynolds, and I went there a couple of weeks ago this year and spoke at the convention.
I noticed you were on the schedule. I was there too. I filmed with Nina actually,
cool.
And a few other people down there. Yeah, we had like a really nice Airbnb nearby, and we got some really good interviews there. And then I had to come back to LA, and I saw that did you play a little clip of?
I did. I played like a 15-minute clip. It was the same clip I took to KetoCon and a few other places. I showed it a few places, but I hung out with Nina. We had dinner with Nina, had a drink with Nina, and then we all went to dinner. But I was in and out. What day were you there?
I was there Wednesday night, and then I left Saturday morning.
I don't know when I spoke, because literally I got back from Europe. Was it Sunday?
On Sunday, yeah.
I got back from Europe, and the next day got in the car and drove. It took us 5 hours. 5 hours and 15 minutes. And I was like, Serena, my talk starts in 5 minutes. And literally got out of the car. She had to park it, and I ran. And Nina was saying, good night, everyone. And Vinny's coming on stage, and I ran in, and they handed me a mic. It was like that kind of weird.
Maybe it was Saturday.
I don't know.
Well,
we went there and did that, and it was fun. And, out of something bad a year before, now, we went and spoke at the convention and had a great time.
Cool. Well, why don't you tell people more about the film? I want to talk about the difference in what I'm making, what you're making, and just for people who haven't heard of it. I don't know if anyone's ever come on my podcast and told this story. This is such a great story. Everyone should watch the film. Obviously, this is not going to replace it, but can you do like a rundown or something?
I wanted to show a history. I'm always questioning people. And, I'll say that, just to give you one pure example, I'll say to people, how long do you think veganism has been around? And they'll say, like a couple of thousand years, right? People of India is vegan, and they kind of crank that up. And I'll say, would you believe that it started in the 1860s? And they'll say, well, no, it's been around for thousands of years, the Indians. And I went, no. The people of India, some of them vow that they will never eat cattle because it's sacred, but they do eat other meats. And to a large part, they're pescatarians or vegetarians. But they're not,
And they use the milk. Yeah, they use the milk and the cheese.
And, they just think cows are sacred, pretty much. So they're vegetarian. Veganism was started by literally a crazy woman that belonged to a cult church called the Seventh-day Adventist. Today, we would just take someone like Ellen White and just lock them up and, have them in a rubber room. But she's one of the founding members of the church. And she decided one night, she said Jesus came to her. Because years ago, Jesus would come to people. Now, if someone said Jesus came to them, they're walking down the street and we try to get them help. back then, if Jesus came to you, everyone went, really? What did Jesus have to say? So Jesus came to her and said that we shouldn't eat anything with a face, so we shouldn't eat any animal. So started veganism. The problem that the church had at the time was that no one can be a vegan because you would die from it. You know, it's just not enough nutrients to live.
Yeah, we didn't have the
We hadn't
supplements back
discovered
then.
vitamins until the 1920s or 30s. So the only way a true vegan can actually live today long term is to take exogenous vitamins. We have essential vitamins. They're essential to take. And vegans just, no matter how good your vegan game is, you will not get enough vitamins. I always tell people, look at Michael Greger. I don't call him doctor. He calls himself Dr. Michael Greger, but he's not a doctor.
Oh, is he not?
No,
is he like a chiropractor
he went
or
to
something,
medical
or what is
school,
he?
but never became a doctor. But he calls himself, he's never been able to practice. I always say, put Michael Greger next to Shawn Baker, and you tell me which one is doing the better diet. You know, Michael Greger looks like you could break him with a twig. The guy is so frail.
He's like on his last legs. Like, I'm surprised he's still around. I listened to your whole back catalog back in the day. It gave me a good foundation. I took a look at all your old interviews with all these great people, including Ann Childers. I remember that one. You know what? She actually just ordered some meat from me. I have a nosetail.org. I sell grass-finished meat. And I just noticed that name. I'm like, Vinnie interviewed her a while back, and yeah, she had some problems with veganism, and apparently she's eating some grass-finished meat now, so that's good.
Yeah, she's a good chick. She's been on the show probably a half dozen times over the years, and you know, she's people like her, people like Lear Keith.
Oh, yeah.
Where vegans want these people, like Lear Keith, she's been attacked on stage, ended up in a hospital because she used to be a vegan, and now she talks about not being a vegan.
I had her on. I did a long episode with her, and people love that one.
Yeah, she's a great girl. I love Lear. And
Georgia Ede too. Just as long as we're going, people love the women I've had on. It's always these women have like these amazing stories, just great information. They just love this. Yeah.
And another, you know, and by the way, she's in my movie, Georgia Ede.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. It's just amazing. You know, we're talking about the movie. I did the whole talking about how veganism came around and how that got pushed into the 1950s and what happened there. You know, Eisenhower had a heart attack, and it was a ripe time for someone to seep in, and that's when Ansel Keys started his whole thing. And you know, we just we take a history for 100 some odd years and bring it up to date. You know, we use these doctors, we use non-doctors like the aforementioned Dave Feldman and Ivor and even Nina and Gary, and you know, we talk to these people and say, okay, you know, tell us what's doing. And look, these people have been looking at the history for a long time, and they do a good job of not only them telling the history, but us showing the history on screen. I'm hoping that my movie convinces people that, oh wait, maybe I've been doing things wrong, so that by the time your movie comes around and Chris's movie comes around and the other woman whose name I can't remember comes around, you know, people will start going, oh wait, this is something I should be doing. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's all pieces of the puzzle, and your movie's such a good job at giving us that story. A lot of people just don't realize the politics that went in, and like in the 50s, and it was just simple like bad science and just politics and a few things, and then the rest is history. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, the politics that continues. I mean, we have people running for president that's coming up, and we don't know what the Republicans are going to say yet because they haven't started their thing, you know, but the Democrats, there's a couple of the candidates on the Democratic side that's saying, hey, you know, meatless Monday, don't eat meat, it's bad for the environment. I'm sitting there going, huh? What? How does that work again? Because you're wrong. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, you know, I think Cory Booker's one of them. And, you know, maybe you have a lot of Democrats that listen to your show. I don't hate Democrats. I don't talk about politics. But Cory Booker's saying, hey, meat's killing the planet. Okay, Cory, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
You know, how can you possibly say that? You want to lead the nation? You're going to lead with a lie?
I've called him out publicly, too. I mean, he probably didn't see it, but I got a couple hundred likes and retweets when I was challenging him on this stuff.
Yeah, and of course, they won't retweet. You know, they just roll a grenade in a room and they walk away, you know. And, hey, Meatless Mondays, here we go. De Blasio, Meatless Monday in New York. Okay, you know, and they're just doing this stuff, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's another thing I would say is my film, I am trying to go into all these details maybe I'm trying to do too much. Sometimes I think that I'm like, well, I'm trying to cover like 35 different things here. But
Well,
yeah.
Would you like it?
Yeah.
And don't take my advice.
I'll hear it.
Would you like some advice on the air?
Yeah.
Pick one thing and do it, because when you think about it, you only kind of get at the most 90 minutes to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere between 75 and 90 minutes. If you do more than that, my feeling is you're going to lose the audience. I mean, I could take all the leftover stuff I have from the movie and do another whole documentary. I could do another 90 minutes. And I know you're sitting there struggling with that, because we struggle, again, going back to Peter Pardini, sometimes keeping me on track, going, if you want to go in that direction, we're leaving this, that, and the other thing out. Mm-hmm. Here's what we wrote down. We wrote it all down at the beginning. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the story we're going to tell. And here's how we're going to do it. And sometimes you have this juicy footage, and you want to go, oh, what Nina just said, what Georgia Eves just said, I need to use that. And it just doesn't fit the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of trying to do everything, because you don't want to lose your audience, I'm kind of taking this from writing a book too, because, my book did really well. Just pick a direction and just go that one direction. And just know that if your movie does well, you could do another movie.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to go, okay, Brian, you did your one movie. There you go.
You're out.
You could do another movie.
You're off the team. No, we're already planning second and third ones, really, now that we've got so much footage. No, I like that idea. Just do it one thing and do one thing well, but we're trying to explore what we should eat. Like, I kind of like yours that you're not exactly telling people what to eat. You're like, this is a film about what happened. It's like a historical account that's like very accurate and compelling. But it's not like what you should eat. This is not like how does it work with environment? But my story is like, let's explore that. It's a little bit like this other guy's film, C.J. Hunt, that you probably saw, the Perfect Human Diet or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's like exploring like, what should we be eating? And so my film is kind of like that. Like, let's start in evolution. Let's look at what are humans supposed to be eating. Then let's look up into where we went wrong. Then let's go beyond that and let's look at modern science. And then let's look at the environment. Let's see if that factors in. And you know what? It all lines up. That's my whole main story is like, wow, it lines up. The environmental stuff, all this stuff, these anti-meat activists are saying is completely wrong. Growing cows can improve the environment. It can improve soil health.
Absolutely.
Obviously, yes. So this.
Not can. No, not that it can. It does.
It does.
There's a big difference between it can. It does. And I like that story. Hey, we were eating this way for a couple of gazillion years. Somehow, in the past 50 years, we went off track. Mm-hmm. And I find that compelling. To be honest with you, if I could have gone another 90 minutes, that's the direction it would have gone in. Mm. But at some point, you have to go, okay, put the hammer and chisel down. It's done. Mm-hmm. And I love that idea. And as you know, I loved your ideas back when you and I were talking.
Yeah, I think that was part of the problem. I think we also had our own ideas. We were both, you've been in the game for a long time and you have your ideas. And it's hard when I felt like I was like just this like young buck, this new guy coming in. You're like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, well, like we just had our own ideas and it just was never going to work. But that's why it works better on our own. And
well, not only does it work better, it gets more content out there, which is content is king. And, the bottom line is that I've seen, being kind of in the media and kind of been beat up and kind of, I got my battle scars. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew what people were going to say and how they were going to say it. And I did a lot to protect. As I told you at the time, I said, look, we could do a movie together, but it's going to be my face on camera. So I better believe everything I'm saying, and I better be able to back up everything I'm saying. And if I can't do that, then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And that was the whole problem, because it doesn't matter who's behind the scenes on the movie. Peter's behind the scenes, Serena's behind the scenes, and everyone helping to make the movies behind the scenes. I'm the guy with my face on camera who's throwing it to Gary and throwing it to Dr. Westman and throwing it to whoever. Mm-hmm. So I have to make sure that everything I'm saying is absolutely accurate from the way I understand it, so that when the naysayers do come out, I can defend it.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm taking a little bit of risk here, but I want to try to make recommendations. My whole thing has always been like, let's simplify nutrition. Nutrition is this crazy topic that's so polarized and there's so much conflicting information. And you walk in and there's a magazine that says the opposite of the next magazine. And then later that month, the same magazine says the opposite